Hi friends, welcome back to my quilt room. Today we're going to do another traditional block. It's called the Churn Dash. And this is what the block looks like. It's very similar to actually the block we did last week, the shoe fly. And this is another block that has been around since the 1800s. It is beginner friendly. It does have some half square triangles in it, but I will show you how to do that. And of course, we're going to put it in the Quilt As You Go method. So I hope you stay tuned and let's see what we need to get started. I'm going to be using a layer cake. This one is by Lori Holt for Riley Blake, and it's called Peace and Plenty. And I chose the layer cake because I wanted every block to be different. So you can get a lot of mileage out of using pre-cuts. But you can use regular yardage, and you can use one fabric, 10 fabrics, whatever you want. Then we'll need our background fabric, which is the white that you see in the block here. And so I have 5-inch squares cut out for that. I have my rotary cutter, a ruler. I have a marking pen because we're going to use that to mark our half square triangles. Little pair of scissors to cut our threads. We have some clips and pins. And then our batting and backing for the Quilt As You Go sandwich, my iron, and my sewing machine. So let's get started. So the first thing I did was I just took a couple um, pieces of fabric out of here, and I did like 3 just to cut them up. And let's see, I'll pick a purple. And I'll show you how to cut these. Put that aside. So I just layered 3 at a time. We're not going to really do 3, but and I just stacked them up like this. So what you want to do is you want to cut 5-inch squares out of this. So I'm just going to line this up, and I'm going to cut 5 inches, and then I'm going to turn my ruler and cut another 5 inches. Okay. So I'm just going to take the first stack here, and then I'm just going to put these aside. We'll do them next. Okay, so first thing we want to do is to line up our half square triangles with our background fabric. So with the right sides together, I'm going to put my backing square on top, and using my ruler and my marking pen, I want to draw a line from corner to corner. And then mark your fabric. And this is a friction pen, so it will erase as soon as I put heat to it. Just make sure these are lined up before you start sewing. Okay. And you can also put pins in here if you wish, if you're nervous about them moving on you. So I usually pin them just because it's just easier. It's when I take them to the machine, so I know they're not going to move on me. So that's the half square triangles. Then for these blocks, we're going to take our other 5-inch squares, and we're going to, again, right sides together. And for these, we're going to sew down the edges. So 1/4 inch from this edge, 1/4 inch from this edge. Same with this one, just the two edges on both. So let's take all this to the machine and we will start sewing. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take our half square triangle that we drew the line on, and we're going to take our 1/4 inch foot, put that underneath, and we're going to run this line on the 1/4 inch end of our foot, or the side of our foot, and we're just going to sew down. Then we're going to flip it and go to the other side. Okay. So this is what it should look like. You should have a 1/4 inch on each side of the line that we drew. Hopefully you saw that. And then we're going to do that with the next one. So again, we're going to put that under a 1/4 inch foot and just run that line along the side of your foot. And you're going to sew 1/4 inch. Okay, so those are our two half square triangles. Now with the other squares that we have, we're going to line these up. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew a 1/4 inch down both sides. So I'm just going to put that under my foot and sew a 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to flip it to the other side and sew a 1/4 inch there. Okay, so now we're going to have a 1/4 inch on this side and a 1/4 inch on that side. And then I'm going to do that with the other one. Okay, so now we'll go back to the table and I'll show you how to cut these. Okay, so we have all our squares sewn down. For the half square triangles, basically what you want to do is you want to take your ruler and you want to just line your ruler up on that pen line or pencil, whatever marker you used, and you just want to cut down the middle. And there's your half square triangles. And then for the squares that you sewed down on each end, what you want to do is you want to cut these in half, 2.5 inches, because they should be 5 inches. So we're going to cut them in half at 2.5. So I'm just going to line up my 2.5 on the edge. And also I'm going to make sure that I'm lined up at the bottom too, so I know I'm getting an accurate 2.5. And then this will make these segments. So I'm just going to finish up cutting all these, and I'll be right back. I want to iron these, and basically what I'm going to do is just set the seam and press them all to the dark. And I'm going to do that for all of them. So now that we have all those, now we're going to trim these down. So for the squares, what you want to do is you just want to trim these down to a 4.5. So I'm just going to take my small ruler, and I pretty much know that this edge is 4.5. So I'm just going to cut that off. And then I'm going to do that with the rest of the 4. Now for my half square triangles, what I'm going to do is, on my ruler I have a 45 line here. I'm just going to line that up with the seam line here. And I'm just going to move in a little bit more than 4.5 just so I can get a clean cut on both of these sides. Making sure that that's still lined up. Okay, so I'm just going to do a line here. So now I know I have a straight line here. So I'm going to turn this, and I'm going to line my 4.5 up on both sides here and trim that. Okay, so that's my 4.5. And then I'm going to do that with the rest of these. So now we have our half square triangles and our squares. So now what we want to do is to put our block together. We're going to take our center square, and we also need to trim that to 4.5. So let me do that real quick. Okay. So we have our center square. We're going to take our half square triangles, put them on each corner, making sure that the focus fabric is coming inside. So they're all pointing to the inside. And then we're going to take our squares and place those around, again with our focus fabric on the inside. And there we have it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to sew this like a 9 patch. So we're going to take the middle square, sew it to that side, and then when that's done, we're going to take this one and sew it to that side. So what I usually do is I turn my fabrics in to get them ready to sew, and then just place the outside one on top until I get to the machine. And then I just stack them, take them all to the machine and sew them. How I do this is I take my first pile, put these aside, and I take my top fabric, put it aside because that's going to go on next, and I sew these two 1/4 inch, and this is what it looks like, 1/4 inch all the way down, making sure that everything is lined up. Okay, then I'll open it up and then add this one, making sure that we're lined up on the side and the top. So that's our first row. So I'm going to put that aside, and then I'm going to take our second row, move that to the side, and making sure this is square, I'm going to sew this down. Okay, then we're going to open that up, sew this side down. And you could also chain piece this too if you wanted to, and then just add your sides, the other side after. But I just like to do one at a time. Okay, so before I join these, I want to take these to the iron and press my seams and make sure that they are pressed in the way that we can nest them. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, so I'm going to line these up in the direction they're supposed to go. And what I want to do is since I have to nest these seams, I want to make sure that they're going in opposite directions. So I just basically take, say, the top row and say I'm going to iron them all this direction. So that's what I'm going to do. So now these are going that way. So the middle row, I'm going to go this way, the opposite way. All right, and then this one, I'm going to go this way. So now we're going to nest our seams and sew these 3 rows together. So I'm going to take the first row, lay it on top of the second. I'm going to make sure those seams are nested. And remember how I showed you in one of my videos, I just basically sort of rub them together until they hit, and then I know it's right in there. So I'm just going to line that up. And I'm going to put a clip in there so it doesn't move. And then the next one, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to slide those together until I feel them hit one another. Put a clip in. And now I know it's not going to move. And you can clip the rest of this if you want to, or you can just take it to the machine. But since I have to carry it over there, I'm just going to clip them, just so I know they don't move. Okay, so that's the top row and the second row. So now I'm going to take the bottom row and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to nest them together, clip it, and do the same with the other one. And I'll clip that bottom too. And this end. Okay, so then we're going to take this to the machine and sew it. Okay, so I'm just going to start with one end. And I'm going to sew 1/4 inch all the way down. Now when I get to my seam, what I usually do is I hold my finger down, take the clip out, and hold this until it gets close enough so that the presser foot is holding it down. And then I'll continue to sew. Again, I'm going to hold my finger down, take that clip out, and hold it until the presser foot catches it, just so I know it's not going to move. And you want to make sure your seams are going in the right direction. This one wants to come up a little bit, so there we go. Okay. So that side's done. And then I want to do that with the other side. Okay, so our 9 patch is sewn down. So now I'm just going to press my seams. And it doesn't really matter in which direction you press these. Okay, so now we want to, our block is done, and now we want to put our Quilt As You Go sandwich together. So let me grab my batting and backing, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so put this aside. So what we want to do is, now this block is going to be trimmed down to 12.5. So what I did was I cut my backing to about 13.5. And then the same with my batting. So I'm going to layer these. And then I'm going to take my top, put that on. And I just want to make sure that I have my batting far enough out to cover all my sides. Okay. So what I'm going to do before I sew this is to do a little spray basting, so I know it's not going to move when I go to sew it. So just going to put a little bit. Do this, make sure you spread it out so you don't have any bumps or bulges or anything in there, so it's nice and smooth. I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to do the same thing. Again, smoothing it out so we don't want any ripples or anything. Okay. So now we want to sew this down, and I'll show you how I'm going to do this. Okay, so now in the last video, if you saw that, what I did was to sew my top down, I took my 1/4 inch foot off and I put on my stitch in the ditch foot. Except I didn't stitch in the ditch. What I did was I used my stitch in the ditch foot to this little bar I put in the stitch in the ditch, but I sewed on either side of the seam line. And the reason I use this is because it gives me an exact measurement of where I want it to be. And it's the same all the way down. So, you know, you don't have to use a stitch in the ditch foot, but sometimes I notice for myself, you know, sometimes my fabric may move or slide on a foot, and it's not always exact. So it just ensures me that I'm going to get a good line. So I'm just going to put this stitch in the ditch foot on, and I'm going to see where I want my needle. I'm going to move it over just so it gives me like an eighth of an inch on each side. So that looks good to me. So just look at your needle and put it where you want it to do, where you want to put it if you're using this foot. I hope that makes sense. And then I'm just going to sew. So this is what it looks like. If you can see that, it's just a stitch right on each side, right on the one side. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. But first I'm going to do this one. And then I'm going to flip it and do on the other side. Okay, so I have it on both sides right now. And now I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to put that back in the ditch. And now I'm going to do the other side. Okay, so now you can see, hopefully, that it's sewn on both sides of the seam line. And I just really like that look. So that's the way I'm going to do this. And I'm going to do it to straight down. And then I'm going to flip it this way and do it straight down here. So I'll be right back after I do that. Okay, so now we have it all stitched down. And hopefully you can see this. It's stitched on both sides on all 4 of the sides. And then here's the back. I think the back looks really nice too. So now we're going to square this up to a 12.5 inch. So I just happen to have a 12.5 inch ruler. So let me grab that. Okay, so I'm just going to square this up to 12.5 inches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to line up one of my lines with my seam line. And at the same time, I want to make sure that I have some room on my points so that I'm not cutting them off either. Hopefully that makes sense. So that looks good. Might be time for a new blade. Okay, so I'm going to flip this. So now I already know I have 2 edges squared. So I'm going to line that up with my edges of my ruler. Okay. And there we have it. Our Churn Dash block. All finished. There's the back. So now I'm going to show you how to sash these together. Okay, so now the way we're going to sash these together is we have 2 blocks finished, and we're going to take a 1-inch piece of fabric. I'm using the same color as my backing, and you can use any color you want. And I'm going to put this on the back with the right sides together. Line that up. And I'm just going to put this down for right now. And then we're going to take a 2-inch piece of sashing or fabric, and we're going to iron that in half. And what we're going to do is take the raw sides, match it up with the raw sides of our block, and we're going to clip that down. So we have a 2-inch folded on the top and a 1-inch on the back. Making sure this is all lined up. I'm just going to recheck my back, make sure that didn't move. And you want to adjust it if it's not lined up correctly. Okay, so then we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. Okay, so we have that sewn down now. I'm just going to clip some of this off. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that back piece, fold that up, and with right sides together, we're going to join the top of this piece to our next block, making sure that we are lined up. And if it helps, you can always just clip this down to all the way down to the edge, just so you can see it a little better. Okay, so now we're going to line that up with the side of our block and the top of our block. And I'm going to clip that down. Okay, so put a few more clips. Okay, so you want to make sure that this is lined up with your top and your side, and you're going to sew a 1/4 inch all the way down. Okay, so we sewed a 1/4 inch down, and what that did was it brought our blocks as one now on the back. So I'm just going to iron that down real quick, just so it stays flat. And now what you want to do with the front is you want to take the 2-inch that we folded in half, and you want to bring that over. And I'm going to iron that just so it stays. And what you're going to do now is you just want to top stitch this. So just come in like 1/8 of an inch and go straight all the way down. So I'll be right back when I do that. Okay, so here it's top stitched down. You can see the line that runs right along here. And that ensures it now that your front and your back are one piece. So what you want to do is you want to continue doing that with all your blocks. I'm going to trim that down. Same way. And then you want to do the same exact method to sew your rows together. So as soon as you get your blocks all done in one row, you want to take that same method and do the same thing to connect your rows to each other. And then that's it. And then you would bind your quilts and then you would be finished. Here's the 2 blocks that we put together. And we have the green sashing in the middle, which is the same as we have on the back. And I also wanted to show you, if you remember the blocks from last week, we did the shoe fly, which is very similar to this block. And this is what that looks like. And I thought you could also alternate these blocks. You put it like a shoe fly, and then you have a churn dash, and then you put another shoe fly on this side, and you alternate however many across and down that you want. And then if we put another sashing so you can see what it looks like, you get a really different look. So I think that's a nice combination too. So just have fun with it and play around. You could do all one block. You can do it, both of the blocks. But I hope you make one because it's a lot of fun. So if you like this video and you found it helpful, I hope you give it a thumbs up, and I hope you subscribe because that would mean a lot. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so that you know when I put my next video out. And as always, happy sewing and sew something happy.